just wanna be with you.
Giving to your local church should be easy, and with Tidely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tidely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tidely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Good morning, church. Good morning, Newsoul. Let's stand up and worship together. But it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Came along. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied right here in your love. There's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, I searched and I found it's true. I'm not afraid. Now I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you still call me friend, 'cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. And there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. You turn graves into gardens. It's what you do. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Graves in the gardens. You turn graves into gardens. That's what you do. You turn bones into armies. Every time you turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. And you turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. Yeah.
Together, we are creating a new future for the Valley because of your generosity. Your financial support is being used to produce content and create a loving community that is bringing hope to hurting people during the COVID pandemic and quarantine. Your giving equips Newsoul Ribera with tools to provide access to our services and support for people who can only meet with us by phone. Because you give, the hungry are being fed, and we've launched a winter warmth campaign to protect people in the Valley from the cold this season. With your help, in 2021, we're not slowing down, but ramping up a campaign to expand our digital reach to help and inspire more kids, students, singles, families, and seniors. Your giving is making a difference in the community. 1 Timothy 6:17-19 says, "Don't be full of yourselves and obsessed with money, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Go after God, who piles on all the riches we could ever manage. Do good. Be rich in helping others. Be extravagantly generous. If you do that, you'll build a treasury that will last, gaining life that is truly life." We have quick and easy ways for you to give. Online, newsoulribera.com. By text BLESS to 94000. By app, download the Tithely app. Or by mail, Newsoul Ribera, P.O. Box 574, Ribera, New Mexico 87560. To receive text updates from Newsoul Ribera, text Ribera to 94000.
Happy Father's Day. I want to wish all of you, if you're a dad, just want to wish you a happy Father's Day. I know there's so many of you that you're leading your families and you're serving them and you sacrifice so much for them. And I just want to honor you today, dads. Happy Father's Day. Did you have a curfew growing up? Speaking of dads, right? Did you have a curfew growing up? Did you give your kids a curfew? A specific time they needed to be home when they were out. I had one as a teenager, and I started dating Renee as a teenager, and I could get to her house. I lived pretty close, and I could get to her house from my house in about 7 minutes. During the week, or during the day, that is. But on Friday or Saturday nights, when I had a curfew, I could make it in about 4. I think there might have been a couple times I made it in 3. Curfews help me develop what I call 5-minute syndrome. 5-minute syndrome is what happens when I just want 5 more minutes, another 5 more minutes, and when that 5 minutes is up, what do I want? Another 5 minutes. Until eventually, I had to be home in 5 minutes, regardless of how long it took me to get home. It helped me to develop aggressive driving habits as a teenager, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. Maybe this has happened to you and maybe your kids or grandkids. It led to overly aggressive weekend driving for me. Whether you experience a curfew or not, you've experienced a version of this in your life. It could be one more sleeve of cookies, one more swipe of the credit card. It could be one more drink, one more business trip, one more do-it-yourself home project, one more try at the casino, one more. And here's where the math of the 5 more minutes or the 1 more of anything begins to fall apart. 1 more rarely adds anything, right? Many times it actually subtracts. In fact, if we're honest, 1 more actually results in less of what we value the most. Most of us, even though we might not have curfews, or unless you're a very unusual driver, we tend to drive at or above the posted speed limit. While most of us feel very little guilt about this at all, none of us want to get pulled over. So what do? We choose a speed that allows us to break the law while avoiding an encounter with the law. So whether it's driving or spending or diet, our natural tendency is to live as close to the line as possible. Which line? Well, you know the line between legal and illegal, between responsible and irresponsible, between moral and immoral, between ethical and unethical. It's the line between I'm still in control and I need help. It's human nature to snuggle up, come on, you've done this, to snuggle up to the edge of disaster, regret, or embarrassment and stay there as long as possible. Because, we tend to stay on that line until we become our own worst enemy, if we could stay there forever, we would, but we stay on that line until we get grounded or expelled or fired or pulled over or kicked out of the house. Fueling our decisions in this area is a flawed assumption that impedes our ability to make good decisions. It's why we're okay with dating and eating and drinking and living on the edge of embarrassment or worse. This flawed and broken assumption is if it's not wrong, it must be all right. If it's not illegal, it must be permissible. If it's not immoral, it's acceptable. And if it's not over the line, it's fine. The problem with this way of thinking, if it's not obvious to you, is just put your older brother or older sister hat on for a second, or maybe your parent hat or grandparent hat or child caregiver or teacher hat for a moment. I bet you don't set the bar this low for the people you care about most, for your children or for your grandchildren. or anyone else that you really care about. These assumptions are basically asking, how low can we go? How close to the line can we get before it starts to hurt us or someone else? How close to wrong can I get without actually doing wrong? Or if you're religious, how close to sin can I get without actually sinning? And it doesn't stop there, does it? I mean, if we're honest, eventually we start asking, how far over the line can we get without getting caught or experiencing any consequences? How immoral, unethical, insensitive, or careless can I be until I experience unmanageable outcomes or negative consequences? How careless can I be with my family, with my marriage, with my future, with my health, with my relationships, with my finances, with my job, before I experience negative impacts? How much can I indulge in addictive behavior without getting addicted? It's a slippery and a dangerous slope, and it all begins by asking the wrong question. And this question always leads to a second question. And the first question is there anything wrong with this? Right? You've asked that question. Sometimes, if you've been in church a long time, or heard somebody like me, a pastor, talk about this, you're used to getting messages in church about right and wrong. And oftentimes there'll be a discussion afterwards. I've been part of many of those discussions where people sit around a table afterwards and say, well, is this wrong? Is this really wrong? So that first question, is there really anything wrong with this? And which leads to the second question, which is, how did I get myself into this? Drawing the lines and limits for how we live our lives between right and wrong, legal and illegal, healthy and unhealthy, eliminates any margin for error, and it's a foolish and a dangerous way to live. And of course, you already know this. This isn't new information to you. It's why we react the way we do when we see people that we love, people we care about, starting to make decisions this way. It's why you want to lecture them or tell them off or show them how displeased you are. It's not so much about what they are doing or that it's right or that it's wrong or it's legal or illegal. That's not the thing that bothers you most. It's not the action, but the direction of their decisions. It's not what they are doing, but where they are headed. You know intuitively, deep inside, that the issue of concern isn't, is it wrong or illegal or immoral for them? That there's a more important question that needs to be asked if they're to avoid avoidable regret. That question, if you begin to ask it for yourself, will help you avoid avoidable regret as well. And that question is the fourth of the 5 questions we've been asking in this series. And that question is, we'll get to it in just a minute. This is part 4 of Decide Better and Regret Less. And if you've been tracking along with us since the beginning, you'll know that we've been looking at the often overlooked connection between good questions and good decisions. And we've been talking about the fact that if you ask better questions and answer them honestly and then act on them, you will make better decisions, which means your life will get better and you'll get better at life. And the people who depend on you, who look to you, their lives will get better as well. And you'll have fewer regrets because, like we said before, we're not the only ones impacted by our regrets. Question number 1, we've asked the first week, which is the integrity question. Am I being honest with myself? Really? I hope you've been incorporating this into your life. We really basically talked about the easiest person for us to deceive and trick and get to believe our own excuses is the person we see in the mirror every morning. That person. So have you been asking that person to answer honestly and to be honest with yourself. And it's very important because you can never get to where you want to go in your life until you're honest with yourself about where you actually are right now. Question 2 is the legacy question. This is, what story do you want to tell with your life? When your life is over, what story do you want to be told of your life? And every decision you make in your life is writing a story. When this chapter of your life, this season, this moment where you're sitting and watching and listening to this, when this part of your life is over, what story will you tell about this part of your life? Will it be a good story or a bad story? Will you be the hero or will you be the villain? And you have the ability to write that story. Question 3 is the conscience question. And we talked about this last week. This is there any tension that deserves my attention? We talked about how even when we are sober, we sometimes ignore common sense like a drunk person would. And that we sometimes intentionally pretend that there are no signals, there's no tension about the decisions we're about to make. And that whenever we feel a tension in our conscience, even though everybody around us is saying, go for it, it's a good idea, everyone around us and the environment around us seems positive in this decision, and it seems okay, and it could even be moral, it could be permissible. But if you feel a tinge in your conscience saying, there's something about this that there's a tension there that I don't understand, that we need to pay attention to that tension. And when we're considering a decision, we always ask this question. Many times we don't know why there's a tension surrounding an option that we're considering. And this question forces us to investigate and explore this tension. In the very first week of this series, we talked about this saying, and I asked you to memorize it. I challenged you to memorize it, which is the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. The wise realize there is a connection between their decisions and the consequences and outcomes they are experiencing. That as you are sitting and watching and sitting and listening right now, if you are experiencing really good things in your life or really painful things in your life, this scripture is saying that the prudent realize there is a connection between the decisions you are making and what you are experiencing right now. But the simple, they don't see a connection. They don't realize that they are the engineers of their own misery and their own pain. And they keep going and pay the penalty. They don't acknowledge the reality of what's going on. But the truth is, nobody plans to blow up their own lives, do we? Not any of us do. But most of us don't plan not to, do we? So this saying helps us remember to pay attention to what's going on around us. These questions will slow you down and help you get perspective to see the danger and can make sure that it doesn't impact your life. That's what this series is all about. So today, the question I hope you will begin to incorporate into your life when you're making decisions is question 4, the maturity question. What is the wise thing to do? As we've already discussed, asking if an option is good or bad, sinful or not, right or wrong, legal or illegal, ethical or unethical, may not be the best question. You already asked those. And if you're honest, how much has it really helped you in your decision making? The maturity question is a better question, asking, well, what is the wise thing to do in my situation? In this circumstance, what is the wise thing? It's a better question because it's a question that mature people ask. It's actually a test of maturity. If you are willing to ask this question, it shows that you're mature. If you're willing to act on the answer to this, it reveals maturity and grows your maturity. The prudent ask this. The wise ask this. It's also a question that immature and simple people and unwise people, they never think to ask this question. When making a decision of any size, ask yourself this question: what is the wise thing to do? Wise and mature people know that an option can be both permissible and unwise. That just because an option isn't wrong doesn't mean it's wise or the best choice for you right now. Isn't it true that your greatest regret, the moment that was the tipping point for you, the action, the act, the moment and the experience in your life that has become the greatest regret, was preceded by a series of unwise decisions? It didn't just happen suddenly, but there was a gateway. There was a series of actions that preceded it that were very unwise. Maybe those actions weren't wrong. They weren't illegal. They probably weren't immoral or unethical. But as you look back, you realize they were terribly unwise. And now you look back and you see how those unwise decisions paved the way for your biggest regret. They were the gateway to the decisions that made you, that caused you the greatest pain in your life and for those around you. So our question today that we're asking, and the question I hope becomes a permanent part of your decision-making grid, is: what is the wise thing for me to do in this situation? It has its origins in a letter from the Apostle Paul written to a community of Jesus followers in Ephesus 2,000 years ago. He writes, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." There's our words, wise and unwise. If you're a Jesus follower and you're trying to understand how God wants you to live, this should be really helpful to you. This is beyond good and bad, right and wrong, beyond being a good boy or a nice girl. This is really about living either wisely or unwise. These words in the Greek actually mean to redeem the time. The words there, the making the most of every opportunity. Redeem the time. It means to buy back the time. It's where we get our English word opportunity. Imagine if you could go back and get that time back, get that money back, get that decision back, get those words back, get that action back. Where would you be today if you could go back and spend your time and your money and your energy in better and more life-giving ways? Where would you be right now? And Paul is talking about that. He's talking about if he's telling the people in Ephesus, this group of Jesus followers, he's telling them to live wisely. He said, be careful. Don't just be careless with your life. Don't just live without intention. Be very aware of every decision you make, because the days are evil. Some things have improved in the last 2,000 years, better healthcare, better water, better sewer systems, but some things are just the same. Our culture, you know this, isn't morally neutral. The last time you saw an ad, well, maybe you've never seen an ad that encouraged you from a retailer that encouraged you to not buy something right now, to wait, to go home and think about it, to eat less, to buy less. When was the last time you saw an ad like that? You probably have never seen an ad like that. So you're not going to get a lot of help from your culture around us, just like the people in Ephesus didn't. Our culture says, make a decision now and go for more, not less. Don't be, go all out. Don't be careful. So it's on us. If we are going to live wisely, we are going to have to make those decisions for ourselves. Like in Paul's time, people today are abusing and disappointing and hurting each other. That's what makes the days evil. He knew who he was talking to. In Paul's day, when he's writing to this community of Jesus followers in Ephesus 2,000 years ago, he was basically telling them, I know you have regrets from your past. I know you wish you could do some things and say some things over again. In your relationships, to have some do-overs, in your business, in your romantic relationship, in your friendships, in your marriage, with your kids, with your parents, at work or at school. But you have found forgiveness through the death and resurrection of Jesus. But the damage has already been done. But if you live wisely, from this moment on, you can begin to find restoration and redemption. You can get back some of the time that you have lost and wasted. Surrendering to God and putting your faith in Jesus is not superstition. It's not like I wear a cross or I get sprinkled some water on myself or I say the magic words or I give a blessing and then all the actions that I take and the decisions that I make are kind of magically washed so that I don't experience any negative consequences. That's called superstition. And that's not what following Jesus is all about. It's not a good luck charm. Praying a prayer and giving your life to Jesus makes you right with God, but it doesn't make everything all right again. It doesn't erase the damage that has been done to your relationships, to your family, to your health, to your career, to your finances. It's not magic. So Paul is teaching, he's telling the people at Ephesus, you want to undo some of that damage? You want some time back? Begin to live wisely from this point on. I want to encourage you to ask this question from three perspectives: your past, your present, and your future. In the light of my past experience, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? What would happen to your life if every decision and every opportunity that comes your way, that you are facing right now, was filtered through this question? Think about your relationships, your health, your finances, your career. In the Old Testament, there was a story about twin brothers that might be helpful here. Many of you have heard of Abraham. He was a powerful and a wealthy man by the time that his life ended. He passed on his wealth, as they did in that time, and his influence to his son Isaac. And Isaac took that inheritance and increased it during his lifetime. Isaac had twin sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau was born moments before Jacob. In fact, Jacob grabbed on to Esau's foot when Esau beat him into the world. Maybe it's because Jacob wanted to be born first. And the reason he wanted to be born first is that the firstborn were given the rights to a majority of their fathers and their families' wealth and property and influence. When his father passed away, that belonged to Esau, and there was nothing Jacob could do about that. But one day, when they were teenagers, Esau was out hunting. Esau was the outdoorsman. If this story was happening in our time, Esau would have had his camo gear and his whole collection of guns and bows and arrows. He would have had fishing rods and reels, and his wall would have the mounted heads of all his trophies. He did not catch anything on this particular day, however, and he came back home hungry. Not hungry like I could go for a green chili double cheeseburger right now, but like really hungry. And Jacob was at home. And you know what he was doing? He was cooking. He was cooking red chili. Now, the text says red stew, but we're in New Mexico, and if you say anything with red stew, it's red chili. So it's red chili for our purposes. It's like it would be the red chili like your grandma used to make, or the way your mom made it, full of flavor, the way the aroma filled up the house and could be smelled outside. And here comes Esau, back from his hunt, frustrated and hungry. And he said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." He smelled that red chili. It was his favorite. It was fresh and it was hot. It was ready to serve. Maybe there's some tortillas. He was wanting to scoop it up. Perfect. Esau couldn't take it anymore. The voice of his need and his appetite and his hunger pain was so loud that every other voice was drowned out. Jacob saw an opportunity here. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." Pretty clever for a teenager. Esau was thinking about right now. Jacob was thinking about the future. Jacob offered to trade. He had his eyes set on bigger things than a bowl of red chili that he had cooked. "Look," Esau said, "I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" Esau could only feel his hunger pain. He was focused on having his immediate pain relieved, his immediate appetite satisfied. Esau saw that 1,000,000 bowls of red chili and 100 chefs to make them in the future, which is what would come along with having his family's wealth and fortune, wasn't as valuable as having one bowl of red chili right now. Esau had no self-control. So Jacob, who valued the birthright, the inheritance, and saw its incredible worth, he took advantage of how unwise Esau was. And Esau gave his future away for a bowl of red chili. Scripture tells us that afterward, when he wanted to inherit his blessing, he was rejected. Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he had done. Esau regretted his decision. One day he woke up and realized what he had done, but it was too late. He wanted to undo what he had done. He wept. He valued it, but he could not undo what he had done. What if he had paused for a moment and thought and asked the question that we're talking about asking today? What is the wise thing to do in this situation? Maybe he did and did it anyway. We don't know for sure. But what we do know for sure, what you know for certain, and what I know for certain is our excuses that we sell ourselves on to make unwise decisions always escort us to the threshold of regret. Every single time. We say, well, but I'm not hurting anyone, or I can handle it, or there's no law against it, it's not illegal, or God will forgive me. We've been talking about how the easiest person for you to deceive and the easiest person for me to deceive is the person we see in the mirror, and how we buy our own excuses all the time. And these excuses, and the reason we buy them, is that these ones are mostly true. You're not doing anything wrong yet. You can handle it right now. And yes, God will forgive you. But so what? That's not even the point. Eventually, when we make unwise decisions, we end up with regret every single time. You know this. You've heard the saying that those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You have a history. I have a history. If the only things that have changed in your life since your last big regret is that you go to church, whether it's online or in person, maybe you read the Bible, you sing some songs, you hear a sermon, you pray, then there's a really good chance that you will repeat the same mistakes again. And that your future will just be exactly like your past. Do you know what breaks my heart? Seeing parents parent their children in a way that's going to drive a wall between them and their children and their grandchildren in the future. To see teenagers make decisions that are going to have negative consequences that will trail around with them for the next 10 or 20 years. Seeing married people make decisions that are going to lead to pain, broken hearts, and loneliness. Seeing single people make decisions that keep them from finding real love and companionship. Seeing creative and capable people ruin their careers and their finances by their own decisions. So this question, in light of my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do, is an important question. Because 5 or 10 years from now, you're going to end up somewhere. Don't you want to end up in a place that you want to be? When you picture where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, do you want to be alone? Nobody does. Do you want to be broke and in debt? Do you want to be sick and in pain? Now, some of these, granted, are out of our control. But if it were in your control, all in your control, is that where you would want to be? If not, then where do you want to be? Physically, relationally, financially. So this decision is this option that you are considering right now. The decisions that you are facing right now, the options that you're considering in your life right now. Is it going to help you to get to where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Or will it hurt you? This is the maturity question. In light of your past experience, your current circumstances, and your future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for you to do right now? It's not about right and wrong, ethical or unethical, good and bad. It's bigger than that. It's better than that. It's what is the wise thing for you to do right now in all the options that you are considering. For some of you, you spend your time and energy trying to pass on these lessons to the next generation so that when they grow up, they will have habits that are full of wisdom so that they will decide better and, regret less. But did you know that the best way for them to get this lesson is to see you and to see me put this into practice in our lives every single day? If you can get it right, so can they. We'll stop here for today and pick up next time right here in part 5, question 5 of Decide Better and Regret Less.